This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Your boss is going off at you for missing a deadline and you swear the clock just moved backwards. Suddenly, you remember the pack of Tic Tacs on your desk. Now you're riding horseback on the beach, the smell of citrus in the air. And what's this? Your boss is sitting behind you, breathing heavenly fresh mint. Refresh your mouth and mind and share your good vibes with Tic Tac.
Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and his musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. He and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, October 15th, 2023. And to be specific, Drew and I are recording on Sunday evening, right after the Wonderful World of Disney, Disney's 100th anniversary celebration aired on ABC. And
right after for you, right before for me.
There we go. That's how that time zone thing works. And to be honest, I wasn't tuning in to catch the world broadcast premiere of Encanto. Don't get me wrong, love that Oscar-winning film. But I've already seen Encanto, whereas Once Upon a Studio... Now, Drew, you actually saw this at Annecy last year.
Yes, correct. Yep.
It was complete at that point, or
it was complete, and people were losing their minds.
How is this being categorized? Because it's a live action short with animation.
I think it is categorized as an animated short, but I could be wrong.
I still don't get this. I still don't understand if they're looking to get an Academy Award for this thing that celebrates 100 years of Disney animation. Doesn't it make it invalid if it airs on television first?
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay. Somebody actually wrote to us on Twitter and said that it was playing before the Moana re-release in theaters. And I wonder if it played before other things, that somehow that amount of time equaled a week, 2 weeks, or a week, or whatever it has to be.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was always under the impression that this was going to go out ahead of Wish, and which, again, drops in theaters on November 22nd. But that's not happening, or?
It is not happening, no.
Wow.
It will be on other platforms before Wish even comes out, but I've been told to shut up about that. But I'm sure by the time this episode comes out, everyone will know or have seen it or something. But
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Now, speaking of Disney Wish, I want to take a moment here at the top of the show to talk about something that's happening in LA this coming week, which is the Animation is Film Festival, which is being held Wednesday, October 18th through Sunday, October 22nd at the TCL Chinese Theater 6 down on Hollywood Boulevard. And if you attend this event, you're going to get to see cool things like The Boy and the Heron, the new Hayao Miyazaki movie in IMAX, no less. Hang on. No, you're not going to get to see that. That screening at Animation is Film Festival is already sold out. Also, the standard screening of A Boy and His Heron is sold out. But that's okay. There's other cool stuff. There's screenings of Troll Band Together. Likewise, Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, and 30th anniversary special screenings of Aardman's The Wrong Trousers and Batman Mask of the Phantasm. But why should listeners of this podcast really want to attend this year's Animation is Film Festival? Because at this year's, there'll be a Disney 100 presentation, which will feature Once Upon a Time on a Big Screen, as well as a presentation about Disney Wish. And who it will be acting as the MC of this presentation, you ask? Someone very familiar to folks who listen to this podcast, our very own Drew Taylor. I am so thrilled you got this gig. What an honor. Holy cow.
Well, I'm not doing the Once Upon a Time stuff, but I am doing the Wish presentation, part of the presentation. And I will be joined, of course, by Chris Buck and Fawn. And it will be a wonderful, I don't know, I think it's like 30 minutes of footage or something. And then we'll have a little chat and we'll take questions from the audience. And it will be great. It'll be, what else are you doing on a Saturday morning that's that cool? You know, you gotta come down.
The fact that Drew got selected to do this, and again, this is a significant thing. Okay, anyway, we're going to have more animation news in a moment, folks. But first, want to remind you that the news portion of today's show is brought to you by Touring Plan's own travel agency. So if you're thinking on heading down to Walt Disney World in the not so distant future, these obviously knowledgeable folks can help you plan your dream vacation. They'll even toss in a free subscription to the Touring Plan. So if you're visiting Central Florida sometime soon, please check them out at touringplans.com/travel. Okay. So we were just talking about the Animation is Film Festival, which again gets underway out in LA Wednesday of this week, October 18th. But just a reminder, Drew and I are recording this week's show on Sunday, October 15th, which is when New York Comic Con is coming to a close at the Javits Center. And this con has been going on in New York City since Thursday of this week, October 12th. And you've seen, obviously, a lot of animation news coming out of this thing. So let's start by talking about the news that just broke about season 2 of Monsters at Work, which I remember when they first started talking about this show back in November of 2017. Can we talk about how late in the game Billy Crystal and John Goodman actually came on the project?
Well, I just think that there were just sort of different phases of that first season in terms of who was involved and who wasn't involved. And
Okay.
I think that at a certain point, Pixar got really interested in what was going on with it. They ultimately did not sort of take any kind of real role in the show, but it was very late in the game that John Goodman and Billy Crystal were announced and were secured. But if you look at the timeline, you could see that it was a while before anybody mentioned them. Yeah.
And what's interesting is season 1, which debuted on Disney Plus back in July of 2021. That was created and executive produced by Bobs Ganaway. He was Lilo and Stitch, the series, House of Mouse. He was also director and writer on Planes in 2013 and the sequel that Disney Toon Studios produced for that, Fire and Rescue. But I was really intrigued by the fact that, did you see who's on board to executive produce this time around?
I did, and I thought it was very interesting.
It's Kevin Dieters. He's the executive producer, and supervising director is Stevie Wormer-Skelton. And these two Emmy Award winners are the talents behind 2009's Prep and Landing and its 2011 sequel, Prep and Landing Naughty vs. Nice. And I have been sitting here patiently waiting for Prep and Landing 3. I'm happy to see Kevin and Stevie, working on something, but it's like, oh, okay. But anyway, back to Monsters at Work news, season 2. We're going to get new characters being voiced by people like Jennifer Coolidge and Jennifer Lewis, Ali Wong, Paula Pell, who I've loved ever since playing Pamelia Perkins at the Adventures Club at Walt Disney World. Then Danny Trejo and even Alan Tudyk, all voicing characters. But the other thing, the big announcement coming out of New York Comic Con is they're bringing characters that were initially introduced in the prequel, Monsters University, the film from June of 2013. Folding those into the show. So Aubrey Plaza, Nathan Fillion, and Bobby Monahan are going to be, voicing their same characters again.
Oh, that's fun. I really like Monsters University. I think it is pretty swell.
I think the last half hour of Monsters Universe is just masterful. I mean, they just do such a great job. Whereas the first 3 quarters, at least for me, is a little... But again, it's Dan Scanlon, and who doesn't love what Dan Scanlon does?
Listen, Jim, it's a lot like our favorite Disney live-action movie, Midnight Madness. Those first 2 acts, So we gotta give it up for that.
Did I tell you I have been talking with the guy who's putting together the Midnight Madness documentary? The guy's out there trying to put together a movie about it. He needs, for lack of a better term, exposition boy. Someone to drop the necessary background facts and that sort of thing. So
I thought you were going to say he needs help. psychologically for making a movie about Midnight Madness.
That's such an interesting period in the company's history where they were, you had these weirdly ambitious people at Disney who were trying to sort of bump out the borders of what a Disney film was. And so, they looked at Animal House and like, yeah, we could do one of those. And it's like, really, you're Disney and you think you can do an Animal House. But again, any movie that features the big screen debuts of both Michael J. Fox and Pee Wee Herman, you got to acknowledge, the cinema greatness. All right, and speaking of greatness, Drew and I were obviously fans back in the day of the live-action Scott Pilgrim film. And we've got the new anime version that Scott Pilgrim Takes Off debuts on Netflix on November 17th. In fact, we got a brand new trailer for this series, which is based on the Brian Lee O'Malley graphic novels, again, coming out of New York Comic Con. Likewise, we got a trailer for Grimsburg, which a new animated comedy for adults that stars and is executive produced by John Hamm. That's going to be debuting on Fox in January of next year. They made a big deal out of the panel today, to the effect of, hey, Fox is so high on this show that even before season 1 premieres as part of their animation domination block, that they've already renewed it for season 2. And it's like, I need to speak with Mr. Taylor about this, because is this the same thing we're seeing with the stuff for Disney Plus and the Disney Channel where...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they just...
So there we go.
Yeah. It has to hit some probably very easily notched ratings quota. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely nothing coming on this year or early next year. They need the episodes. So yeah, of course they're and they say we've renewed it for season 2 out of Comic-Con to just get a little news bump, and here we are, Jim, falling for it like a couple of suckers. But
as soon as I saw that line, it's like, okay, I need to talk to Taylor.
The other thing I wanted to say is that Scott Pilgrim is going to blow your minds. I think that's all I can say at this point, but it is so good.
That's a great looking trailer. I mean, it just love the design and love the animation, so can't wait. Now, on the other hand, in the same window of time, Illumination's next theatrical release, Migration, going to arrive in theaters December 22nd. And we got the second trailer for this Benjamin Renner movie. It debuted just over the last 24 hours. And have you seen this one, Drew?
Maybe. I don't know what I'm allowed to say yet. But I haven't seen the trailer.
Okay.
But I maybe have seen the movie.
Okay. But I have to tell you, from the marketing of Migration has, for me, been weird. I mean, we got that first trailer back in July, which was mostly clips from Despicable Me, Secret Life of Pets, Sing, and Minions, and very little real footage from Migration. And then mid-July, we got what I thought was a really good trailer for Migration. And this one that just came out within the past 24 hours almost feels like a step backwards. It's like, I don't entirely understand what Universal Pictures is doing here. Normally they are great when it comes to promotion, and they move from strength to strength to strength. And it just felt like with this trailer, it's like, wow, I am now less compelled to want to go to see that movie than I was from the trailer that came out in July. I mean, and the trailer for Leo, the new Adam Sandler animated thing from Logic, or Animal Logic.
Yeah.
The trailer that dropped last month, the teaser, it was middling. It was just one of these things like, meh, okay. Whereas the trailer that dropped three days ago, it's like, I want to see that movie. That looks like a lot of fun. That looks like it has big laughs, a lot of heart. A really good trailer can do that. Or a really good trailer can turn that around. Leo drops on Netflix on November 21st. One day later, in theaters, Disney Wish opens, the Wednesday of the long Thanksgiving weekend. And historically, this has always been a great time for Disney. It's a long Thanksgiving weekend. You hang out with your relatives, and then you realize, ugh, I need to get away from these people. What's at the movies? Oh, I will go see the new Disney animated thing. And, so they always had a great opening weekend over Thanksgiving, but the world has changed. You have a brand new full-length animated film available on Netflix, where if you're looking for a 2-hour-long respite from your family, all you have to do is fire up Netflix, as opposed to get in the car, drive to the movie theater, sit through 25 minutes of credits, and then eventually get it. Do you think something like this, like a Leo, will potentially impact Wish's box office numbers? Or
Absolutely, and I think it'll be interesting to see how both of those movies are framed on that Monday, in terms of what Wish has made versus how many hours viewed has Leo been viewed. And I have said this since before I could even talk about it, that Leo is going to be a huge winner. And
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I saw some footage very early this year, and I thought it was great. The songs are great. Sandler is great. It's really funny. The animation is terrific. And I think this is going to be a sleeper. They have, between Leo and Chicken Run, Netflix has a good shot at kind of dominating the discussion around animation this holiday season. So I'm very curious just how that'll be framed on that Monday.
Normally, Thanksgiving weekend, of course, Black Friday, the start of Christmas shopping season. And if you have a dweeb like myself on your shopping list, you're headed to, say, a Barnes & Noble to chase down the latest Art of book for a new animated feature. And speaking of which, the Art of book for Disney Wish goes on sale October 24th. So please note that, folks. Earlier this week, did you see that story on Cartoon Brew about Nimona? That's the animated feature that started off as a Blue Sky production. They acquired the rights to N.D. Stevenson's graphic novel back in 2015, and then announced formally that a feature based on the book was going to be produced by Blue Sky. That news came in 2017, with a planned theatrical release in 2020. And then, of course, Disney acquires Fox, only to shut down Blue Sky. And Nimona was thought to be a casualty of that closure, but it then got resurrected as an animated feature for, surprise, surprise, Netflix. This was announced in April of 2022, and then that film debuted to great acclaim and strong viewership on that subscription streaming service June 30th of this year. And me personally really wanted an Art of book for this amazing film. And again, as Cartoon Brew revealed just this week's, it's here, all 358 pages of it, only in digital form, which you can look at right now, folks, by going to this web address, artofnimona.com. Art of Nimona is all one word. And Aidan Shugno, Nimona's production designer, as well as being the guy who compiled this amazing multimedia document, swore to Jamie Lang, he's the writer who did the interview at Cartoon Brew about this digital art book. Aidan swore that if I have any limbs left, I'll cut them off to get a physical version of this book made. I want this thing out there as much as possible, if only to selfishly have 8 copies of it stacked on my desk. And this is kind of a dangerous time for those of us who love physical media, books and things like Blu-rays, because as Drew and I have talked earlier on the show recently, Target has decided to stop selling physical Blu-rays in its brick and mortar stores. But did you see just this week that Best Buy has decided to do the exact same thing, Drew?
Yeah, I saw Bill Hunt's story, which, again, I love that Bill Hunt is still doing exactly what he was doing in 1998. It's just really heartening. But before we talk about this, I also want to plug that the Art of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem came out this past week. Did you get a copy? Yes. Oh, he's reaching for it right now.
There we go. I got my copy. And it is beautiful. It is just stunning.
What a movie.
They did a great job, and more to the point, they do a great job of delineating the design history and how they decided to come up with a new look. No, great book.
Yeah, I don't understand the Best Buy thing, because from what we've heard, 4K is going to be a real collector's market, in the next couple of years, that, vinyl records are selling, better than they have since, 1979 or whatever. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, have you been to a Best Buy recently? What are they going to put more refrigerators in there? Like, what is going on?
That's a very keen observation, Mr. Taylor. Yes, it does seem like the refrigerators are marching toward the front door.
Yes, they are.
I'm wondering the language here. Best Buy is ending sales of DVDs. Now, does that necessarily mean ending sales of Blu-rays, ending sales of 4K?
That's an interesting question because, they also have this huge market that are like just Best Buy exclusive steelbook packaging for 4Ks and even some exclusive titles that you can only get at Best Buy.
That's where I finally found my DVD of Strange World earlier this year.
There you go.
But again, there's the quote from the Variety piece about this, to the effect of announcing Best Buy's decision to state the obvious. The way we watch movies and TV shows is much different today than it was decades ago, which, again, brings me back to Disney's decision to... Yep, there we go. Disney's decision to put Once Upon a Studio on ABC. All right, speaking of which, Drew and I will get into that live-action short film animated thing in a moment.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Well, whatever it is, but first, this.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the Dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton. For this day.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Before we get started talking about Once Upon a Studio and Drew's appearance this coming week at the Animation is Film Festival, again, being held October 18th through the 22nd at the TCL Chinese Theater 6 on Hollywood Boulevard, I wanted to share this letter that came in from Michelle T., who's a fine-tuner listener that hails from the Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
So here we go. He writes in to say, I have just visited the Disney 100 exhibition in Munich, Germany, and I have to say it was worth the trip. An 8-hour drive from where I live in Arnhem in the Netherlands. It was also a confusing experience, though. Pretty much all the artwork on the walls had a sign next to it that said reproduction, and that included the famous Herbie Ryman Disneyland concept drawing. Some of the artwork looked so old and faded, though, that I really wondered if the signs were just incorrect or if Disney had done a really good job with these reproductions. When you see the carousel horse that Dick Van Dyke rode in Mary Poppins, you can't help but wonder, really? But truth be told, I wouldn't have missed the exhibit. It told Disney stories in a way that only Disney was able to. But the added confusion of not knowing whether I was looking at enhanced, blown-up pictures, which I've seen at home in my books already, or something that the original artist had really touched a century ago, it was a bit of a disappointment. It made me wonder if the exhibition was like that in the States or not. Because, of course, I could imagine that some pieces are too old or fragile to travel. But the thing is, 1 week earlier, I had visited an exhibition, Disney Telling Timeless Stories, in Groningen with cooperation of the Disney Archive, which featured hundreds of original pieces of artwork. So he sent us this note, but he also sent a letter to Matthew Adams, who is the manager for exhibitions for the Disney Archive. And what was nice is Matthew wrote back to Mr. T, and Mr. Adams had to say, "Hello, Michelle. Thanks for reaching out, and thank you for attending Disney 100, the exhibition. Every label that indicates a reproduction is, in fact, a reproduction. However, Carousel Horse, the Dick Van Dyke, is original, as is any other object not marked reproduction. And the reason for the number of reproductions is twofold. Since there are 2 units of this exhibition touring, one is in Europe and one is in the United States, we wanted to ensure that each unit had as similar as possible selection of items, so guests attending either show would have the same experience. And such much of the art is one of a kind, the only way to achieve this was to create high-quality reproductions of the art that would also include any fading, aging, or imperfections that could be seen on the original. The second reason, as you pointed out, is that much of this art is quite old and fragile. And these items will be on tour for the next 5 years. So we were concerned that this was just too long for the art to be on display without constantly having to change the art out for new pieces. So all of that said, heard your feedback and similar feedback from other guests, and we will be replacing many of the reproductions with original art at the next stop in London. And we hope you'll be able to make the trip over to London to see the new added original art. So the London edition of Disney 100, the exhibition, actually opened at the Excel-Inn in East London just this past Friday, Drew, October 13th, where the stateside run of Disney 100, which finished its stint in Philadelphia late last month, opens in Chicago on November 18th. So anyway, wanted to share that, which obviously also ties in with Once Upon a Studio, this 8-minute long film with 534 characters. So when you saw this at Annecy, were Dan Abrams and Trent Corey, the 2 directors there?
They were there. I chatted with them. They are lovely. You know, what I think is interesting about this short is that it really could have felt like a piece of kind of studio propaganda. But they actually conceived of this thing on their own. They came up with the idea while hanging out in a Taco Bell parking lot during the pandemic. I think I asked them which one. I will have to go look at my notes to tell you which Taco Bell. I thought it was the one on Magnolia. It was not. It was in deeper Burbank somewhere. But you know, they kept it secret for a long time. I mean, Jennifer Lee didn't even know that they were working on this thing. And it shows, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, I love that they sort of cooked this up during COVID in sort of classic COVID fashion, that, you know, when they finally went to go pitch it to Jennifer, they had to do it over Zoom. But this was strong enough that they sold it to her over Zoom.
Yeah, she greenlit it before the meeting was up. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I think what's so fun about this is it's not a piece of corporate propaganda. If anything, what's fun about it is the mixing and matching, that how there are these lovely character authentic bits. For example, I love the moment in it when Elliot from Pete's Dragon is flying Cody from Rescue Us Down Under, just like the Golden Eagle did in that film, through the building's interior space, and the kid is like, higher, higher. Or for that matter, Toad, it hijacks the carpet from Aladdin, and that's actually real dialogue from the movie, from The Adventures of Mr. Toad and Ichabod. But I love that they found that line, I'll show you the world, as in I can show you the world from the actual song. And speaking of Ichabod, I love that moment where Goofy almost takes off his head with the ladder. What about you? Do you have any favorite, character-driven bits or stuff from this?
Well, I have not gotten to watch it again, and I have only seen it. I saw it in June or July.
Okay.
So I have not, but I mean, I was just enchanted by the whole thing. I thought it was absolutely moving and so well done and so beautifully animated. And now we know what that incubator program was for that was developed with the 2D animators earlier this year or last year, that it was all for this, Jim. This is what those people were working on.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you can see the Eric Goldberg of it. It's so clear. Those Mickey and Minnie are so clearly his Mickey and Minnie. Yeah, I just loved that. All of our friends, Randy and Mark and everybody really pitched in to make this feel real, right?
I would love to get a definitive list of who worked on what, because evidently Eric Goldberg worked on Genie, whereas James Baxter came back and did Peter Pan, and it's obviously done by people who know and love Disney animation. Like, for example, in the moment where Olaf is sitting at the animation desk, if you're watching the hallway, who floats by but Robin Williams as the little lost boy from the magic of Disney animation?
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, ow, and this is just before the Genie shows up. And again, there was this one, I'm sure you've seen the story about how they went to the Robin Williams family and got clearance to use a line that had been cut from the original recording sessions from Aladdin. It's like, what was it? I haven't seen a fall like that since Rome. I watched this thing 3 times tonight. When what's fun, there's still new things to pick up, 3 things in. For example, there's a moment in the men's room where Gaston is combing his hair along with a number of different characters getting ready for this photo shoot. And if you look down the bottom, poor Chicken Little is struggling to be tall enough to see in the mirror and to comb his hair. Or for that matter, if you're looking for Bruno from Encanto, keep an eye on Pacha from Emperor's New Groove. Particularly keep an eye over his shoulder. And there's two great touches in this. For example, when they're all outside the building, they're about to take the photograph, and Mickey literally turns to Oswald and it's like, after you. Which of course, when you understand that Mickey came after Oswald, that's a great nod. And I don't want to spoil what Felix does in this, but chef's kiss. The other gag that I absolutely loved about this was Wreck-It Ralph walking into a glass door and getting temporarily stunned, and Mickey asks him, "Are you all right, Ralph?" And he said, "Never better, Garfield." It's really well written. It's beautifully animated. And I've already spent way too much time looking at the final image of this thing, trying to pick out who's where in the photograph.
Yeah, they've actually reproduced that photograph, and we're handing it out to cast members this week with the 100th name tag. So hopefully someone will do a nice HQ scan of that photo so we can really dissect it like the Zapruder film, which is...
what I was about to say. This is the animation equivalent of the Zapruder film.
Well, what's interesting, too, is it's capping off the 100th celebration, but which is tomorrow, which... They're planning a very big strike at the studio tomorrow, as I was there on Thursday, and they were already riling people up. But a lot of the ephemera at the parks is being taken down already. And to me, this is such a lovely companion to the Disney fireworks show, the Disneyland fireworks show, did you ever get to see that, Jim?
Not in person. And It kind of kills me that I remember that night when I went back to the park in the rain and was doing my sort of run of, if I'm going to do Splash Mountain while it still exists, I better get on the ride. And I remember I was standing in the, on the porch at the Haunted Mansion. And from there, you can actually see the castle.
Yeah.
And it was like, they're doing the show. I'm in the wrong place.
Yes.
I could have seen that while I was here at the park. And I felt like such a boob.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most amazing nighttime spectaculars they've ever done. It's so moving and so beautifully done. And to me, Once Upon a Studio and that were kind of like the big hits of this celebration, which you and I have talked about was kind of a bust otherwise.
No, I agree. And in fact, one of the things I think that you and I both enjoyed when it came to the castle show was that wonderful vignette from Treasure Planet. And in fact, that was another thing that was cool about Once Upon a Studio, that Jim Hawkins flying through the corridors of, the studio on his little rocket-powered surfboard.
Well, what was fun, too, was that John Musker was at Annecy, basically in the same row as I was. And to look over and get to watch him watch this short was pretty memorable, Jim, I will say. He was there with his Jazz Cat short at Annecy, and to see him watching that was pretty special.
That's so cool. All right, now speaking of special, let's talk again about your upcoming gig at Animation is Film Festival. So again, you're emceeing on Saturday morning the presentation about Disney Wish. So you're going to be there with Chris Buck and who else from this
Fawn, his lovely, the other director. I don't think they're actually she's not a co-director. I think they're both just directors on this.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the movie. We'll talk about the footage. And we're going to take some audience questions as well. And Jim, I have an update for you.
Okay.
You and I were pre-gaming talking about a Splash paperweight for the Splash Bash. I now have a run of show of that night. If you would like to know that at 5:15, you would get on a bus in front of the Marina Tower at Disneyland, and you would depart for the Edwards Newport Cinema Fashion Island Center at Newport Beach. I have no idea if that is still around.
Wow.
You would watch Splash, and then buses would depart, and they're for the Newporter Inn, where at 8 o'clock, poolside cocktails and supper party would be going on, and quote-unquote in-person Tom Hanks, Daryl Hannah, John Candy, Brian Grazer, and Ron Howard, and then at 10 o'clock, buses return to the Disneyland Hotel. If that is not a great night, I don't know what is. And Jim, you're going to even love this. If you look at the logo on the Splash paperweight and then look at the logo for the actual movie, sometime in between when this was sent and the movie premiered, they changed the logo. And this is the original logo without the tail. So the S curves back into the P, no tail. So anyway, Jim, that is the history. And that was done by our lovely researcher in the next room, Katie Everson, who's overhearing our conversation and texting me this info. So there you go.
So cool.
Yeah.
For me, in real time, to have seen Splash in theaters at a time when this was a company that was genuinely struggling to make movies that connected with audiences, and to have this wonderful romantic comedy that rightly connected hugely with audiences back in the day. But Tom Hanks, has these absolutely great stories about going to Disney and making Splash, and how he just described going on the Disney lot in like 80, 81 as they were getting ready to begin production. And the way he described it is that Disney felt like an underfunded community college. I mean, it was just, that they were barely in show business at that point. And the fact that here they were with Ron Howard and all of them making this movie, and at the same time concerned, will they be able to beat the Warren Beatty mermaid movie to the market? But again, there's a lot of great stories there. A lot of great stories.
Well, did you see also that they're tearing down the old Warner Ranch right now down the street from where I live in Los Angeles?
No.
Yeah, they're putting up sound stages apparently, but they knocked down over the weekend the 1960s Batman Batcave.
Do you remember Disney Auction? They actually had for a time an arm of the company where they were literally auctioning off props and costumes from various films and that sort of thing. And I remember writing a story once because they were selling off one of the Hyperions that had been used to make Island at the Top of the World. And I was just like, this is the equivalent of selling off the Nautilus. And how can Disney do this? And I'm not going to say the name of the exec who reached out at me at the time and said, okay, pal, let me walk you through this. Okay, first of all, there were 3 Hyperions that we used in Island at the Top of the World, and we're keeping 1. So we don't need 3. We can sell off 2. And when you get right down to it, the film is the end product. The costumes, the props, the stuff we use to make the movie. that's just grist for the mill. And, the fact that, we have props from the 30s and the 40s and costumes that, that sort of thing, that's the oddity. Most of these things just got destroyed when we were making movies. As soon as you finished, yes, there was a beautiful set they built for The Wizard of Oz, but they tore it down as soon as they finished making the movie. And so, the whole notion of, oh my God, they're selling off to Hyperion. It's like, you need to be realistic about this crud. So it's like the whole notion of the Batcave from the 1960s being torn down. And it's like, well, yeah, but we still have Adam West on various different forms. I wonder, is there a 4K out there now of the Batman, the live action series from the
There's
60s?
a good Blu-ray set from a few years ago. I mean, now I think Disney owns actually those old episodes because Fox had the rights or something. So yeah, who knows?
Be interesting to see if that ever shows up on Disney Plus.
And it's just insane to just see these cranes in real life kind of ripping through history.
I know. It's just
whatever.
That's the heartbreak of living out in LA. It's so funny you mentioned, which Taco Bell was it that they had the conversation? Because it's like, so often I'm driving around in LA, Vine or thereabouts, and to see these amazing buildings at around crossroads of the world that are being turned into chicken restaurants,
right.
just sort of.
Yeah. Hollywood is not, it's not a boom time for Hollywood in that area right now.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Especially with the, the arc light closed. It just kind of cut down on a lot of nightlife down there, and very sad.
But they did just pull down the Cinerama sign because they're getting ready to redo that, right?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about what. Thankfully, the Cinerama Dome is a historically protected
so they can't.
building.
Okay.
But the Egyptian is about to reopen in the next month or so, which is very exciting because having that out of commission was a big, it was a bummer. There was a lot of cool stuff.
No, totally. Yeah. I mean, I spent an amazing evening there in the mid-2000s. They ran 3 of the most recent Godzilla films back to back to back there, and it was just such fun, to be with a crowd that was there to see, guys in rubber suits step on, tiny little balsa wood buildings.
Yeah, the last movie I think I saw there was a Flight of the Navigator.
Wow.
35 millimeter print. There were about 20 people in the theater, but we were very enthusiastic.
All right. So, again, this is why you listen to Drew Taylor, folks. And speaking of which, stories at the wrap, not to mention his wonderful Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast, which Drew does with his equally talented co-host, Charles Hood. The Blu-ray of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 hits store shelves on Halloween, October 31st. So you have to be doing something this month on Light the Fuse to commemorate this thing marching out, right?
I hope so. I mean, the special features are really, really great. So I would encourage people to buy it on digital or physical. I am very excited about the 4K coming out at the end of the month. But yeah, it's great. So hopefully we'll do a rundown. We've also talked about maybe doing a commentary track, which we used to do for the Patreon, so that you can actually sync up us to your version, whatever version of it you're listening to, and let us roll. So, yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we do have some other podcasts here at Jim Hill Media we'd like you to check out. We have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We have Marvelous Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams. By the way, Aaron has, Drew, his own outside podcast well worth checking out, 32nd Street. Brian Gaughan and I will be doing a brand new Looking at Lucasfilm sometime in the coming week, and brings me to our Len and I's next project, Disney Unpacked, our first ever video series, which we produced in collaboration with veteran Imaginer Jim Schul. It bowed on Patreon earlier this month. First show is about Magic Carpets of Aladdin, and next month's show is going to be about Crush's Coaster. Be sure and check those out. Speaking of checking things out, keeping tabs on folks, where are you now, Drew, come social media?
I'm still on all the horrible. I mean, I'm still on X, although it just gets worse and worse every time I go on it. So I'm on X. I'm on Instagram, If you want to see photos of my wife and dog, it's a pretty good spot.
Speaking of which, I have to say, I love those photos of you and Charles in the car graveyard. Was that your set visit for Dead Reckoning? Or?
Yeah, it was set visit. We were there about this time, actually, last year. And they were deep in production on 8. And they will still be deep in production on 8, maybe at this time next year. But it was that was, when you see the movie and you see the Fiat, we saw all the wrecked Fiats that they tore apart. It was very cool. And that took months and months of approval to just get that photo out. But we've got even cooler ones coming out for 8. So yeah.
You and Charles look very happy, which was again why folks you want to keep tabs on Drew on social media. Me, I'm on Twitter, X, whatever they're calling it. Instagram is Jim Hill Media. Over on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. Final favor, want to ask you folks, if you head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, well, not just the show you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning, but also like the Fuse. That would be very helpful. And if you like what you heard, you want to head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be cool too. That's going to do it for this week. But remember, if you are out in LA and you want to see an amazing presentation this coming Saturday at the TCL Chinese Theaters 6 on Hollywood Boulevard, what time is it?
I think it starts at 11, and so I think I'll be on at closer to 12. But
okay.
Yeah, come say hi. If you see me too, just say hi. And I know we have so many amazing listeners who care so much about animation, and so just stop me and say hi. We'll talk.
Cool.
It'll be great.
All right. Well, again, and get pictures. I want to see them. I want to see them. All right. Anyway, that's going to do it for this week, folks. Thanks you for listening. We'll be back soon.